Hi there, my name's Simon from writtenlegalenglish.com and welcome to this video, this end of the week video where I'm going to go through my redraft, how I redrafted the text I asked you to think about on Tuesday. And this is the text I asked you to consider. This is the defined term package, if you were wondering what package was, and I asked you to think about a couple of different things. Firstly, to identify the main messages and simplify those main messages, and in doing so, use a simpler sentence structure to communicate those main messages, which would then improve the readability, and then to think about that defined term. Could we call that something else which perhaps is easier to understand and perhaps makes a little bit more sense? Well, if you haven't had the chance to do it, or you didn't see Tuesday's video, then pause the video now and have a quick think about that. But assuming that you have, let's continue. Okay, the first thing I want to do is just say that this text is a perfect introduction as regards lots of different things, lots of bad habits that exist in legal English writing. First of all, we've got a long sentence which has got lots of information in the middle of it, which just straight away makes it really difficult to read. We've got lots of unnecessary language in there, what Professor Widdick called glue words. Words which fill a sentence but don't actually communicate the meaning. For example, the legal prepositional phrase at the beginning, in the event that. 4 words which could be replaced by 1, if. And then we've got other words, other structures in there which probably are not necessary when you think about the main message. For example, within the framework of or taking into account. From the lawyer's point of view, the author's point of view, they might think, okay, I need to include this language because it helps cover my bases, it helps protect me, and it looks pretty good. But from a reader's point of view, this is a nightmare. It's just a whole load of words which are essentially meaningless, or that's at the worst. At the best, they just take the reader's focus away from the main message. So we've really got to question that text. And then we've got unnecessary use of the passive and a number of other things that I'm not going to go into detail here. So perfect example of lots of legal English drafting bad habits. But I asked you to interpret the text and find those main messages. This is what I think are those main messages. If you book a consultation or examination within your package and then change your package, we may charge you the full costs of medical services that you receive in a BCD facility. The costs are based on the price list on the day you receive the medical services. Those are what I think are the main messages. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with me? Do you guys disagree with me? If you disagree with me, then please leave a comment below about how I've got this wrong. And I just want to say a few words about that. And this is one of the huge disadvantages of bad legal English drafting. When you're drafting, you should not be thinking about yourself. You should be thinking about the reader, because if the reader can't understand the text you're writing, then a couple of things can happen. 2 of the most likely things are the reader will be forced to interpret the text, which is what I've had to do because I've got no idea what that original text actually is meant to say. So this redraft is my interpretation of that text, and of course interpretations can be wrong. And secondly, don't think for one second that a reader will actually want to read it in the first place. Very often, anecdotally, I know when you have a difficult legal text, people very often just ignore it. They can't be bothered to read it. That's what the effect of bad legal writing has. It either allows people potentially to come up with their own interpretations, not what the author intended, or simply people just ignore it, and then they have to phone up the company with questions, which they don't have to do if the text was written better in the first place. And I just want to mention one more point, which is perhaps a little bit provocative, but I believe this to be the case. a writer should never ever use the excuse that the reader isn't educated enough or doesn't know English well enough to understand what the text says. If a writer says, I understand it, therefore a reader should understand it, this is a terrible approach. And we can see that in terms of the public sector and in terms of the private world, that this approach where people are writing to help the reader understand is very much the way the world is moving in terms of business text and legal English texts. So if you want to be left behind, if you want to say to the reader, this is your problem, you don't understand this, then I would recommend from a business point of view, not to mention other points of view, that this is a bad idea. Okay, with that being said, I've done a number of things in my redraft. I've simplified, I've revised the sentence structure, I've put important points in individual sentences. The first sentence is still quite long, but I've broken it up into clauses in a way which I hope is still easy to read, because you can have a long sentence, that's not a problem, as long as the reader will get to the end of the sentence and still remember what's at the beginning. If a reader reads a long sentence and then gets to the end and forgets what's being said, then that's a bad long sentence. But if you have a longish sentence and the reader can remember everything, then that's okay. And I've put those points, those main messages, into separate sentences. What I've also done is I've dropped a lot of language, and here perhaps I might have got something wrong, because I understand the main messages in this way, and in my interpretation, perhaps I've ignored some information that is important. So, for example, if you have a look at the original text, where I've put change ***, I've removed the information about loss, because I don't think it's really relevant. How can I lose a package? What does that mean? And if I can lose a package, then perhaps the text should tell me how I can lose my package, or in which circumstances I have lost my package. So from the point of view of the main message, I don't think it's really relevant. And then about package, I've said that as a defined term, I don't think this is a very good defined term, because package is a word that can mean many different things. It can mean a collection of services, yes, but it can mean things that you send backwards and forwards through the post and other things. I think we could choose a better defined term which represents that collection of services in a much better way. And I'm going to show you my thinking here. So perhaps treatment plan would be a better defined term. And if you have a look at the websites for private health providers in England and America, and probably Australia, Canada, New Zealand, etc., they tend to use language like treatment plan as opposed to packages. So that's another interesting point. And I've explained here with the second asterisk point in a little bit more detail, what does loss mean? Okay, in summary, believe it or not, I've covered a lot of information in this video about the habits that lead to bad writing. Information which really needs time for you guys to absorb, to think about, and then be able to identify in your own writing and then correct those problems so you don't make those same bad drafting habits as clearly has happened in the original text. And one way you can learn what those bad habits are is if you follow my content, which I publish on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday on a number of different social media channels. So on Tuesday, I put out the text I'd like you to think about and redraft. On Wednesdays, I put out a video from my short course, which is about 5 minutes long every single week, presenting one rule to think about or one guideline to think about how you can instantly improve your professional English writing. And then, of course, on Fridays, I put out videos with my redraft of the text I asked you to have a look at on Tuesdays with an explanation about a little bit about legal English writing and how to improve and get better and make your professional English writing a little bit more successful. So if you want to join me on social media, then please click on the links either below or above the video to do so. And if you want to support me, you can do on my Patreon page, where if you wish, you can join my courses for a very, very small monthly fee, and you can see all of the content and the questions and the answers to the videos that I put out on Wednesday. Okay guys, have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you again on Tuesday with another redrafting video.